Hello, good people. Welcome back to the Kuhb Games YouTube channel. We are here with the final episode of the top 50 worst cards in Go Format's history. We are going to get into some honorable mentions whenever we get to number one. However, I have failed, and I will take sole responsibility for this. I have failed to mention in all of these videos that we did not consider several cards. We did not consider normal monsters, fusions, or any card that can't be used. The Call of the Grave, Anti-Raigeki, Griffin Wing, White Hole, and Blue Eyes Shining Dragon. It is not those cards' fault that they cannot be used in the format. However, they are pretty bad anyway. But we left them off the list on purpose because we would get to the bottom six cards and it would just be like, drag all of them onto the screen. Here you go. You know these cards can't be played, and that would not be fun. But yeah, after I've talked about a minute and Petty has said a few times, I will announce that Petty is once again here with me, and I'm sure he is excited to get into this video and get this series over with so he never has to talk about these cards again. So say whatever you want, Petty.
I'm excited to be here and talk about this video and the cards so I never have to talk about them ever again.
He knew the assignment and executed it perfectly. We actually did not plan that. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump into this. We are starting at number 10 here. This card,
oh God,
I believe, is the only card that on the, it might not be the only card on the list, but if you look this up on GoFormat.com, under the ruling section for this card, it literally tells you how to pronounce it, and it is not the way I've pronounced it for 31 years of my life.
No.
How do you think this card is pronounced? Because it's not Armor X.
Pause this video. Pause the video. Say it to yourself, and then come back.
It's not Armor X. In fact, it is Armor Exay. Yeah, so this card, before you scream at me, Skill Drain is a card. I understand, and we're going to talk about it. This is a level 4 light monster that is rock, which has got to be one of the worst types, even though the Lost Millennium tried to make it the best type in Yu-Gi-Oh! It has 2400 attack, which is a lot for a level 4, and it's 1400 defense. This card reads, this card cannot attack in the same turn it is normal summoned, flip summoned, or special summoned. Cool. During each of your and your opponent's standby phases, remove one spell counter on your side of the field. If you do not, destroy this card. Okay, I mentioned Skill Drain, so we're going to talk about that first. We'll just get that out of the way. Yes, Skill Drain does allow this card to attack the turn that it is normal summon, flip summon, or special summon. However, removing a spell counter is still a maintenance cost that has to be paid under Skill Drain on both standby phases. So you would choose to play Goblin Attack Force, Giant Orc, Zombra of the Dark, Facilier Dragon, Jirai Gumo, even cards that work outside of Skill Drain, like Kaiku, Blade Knight, DD Assailant, DD Warrior Lady. You're playing all of those over this card. So I don't think this card is even a contender. When it comes to Skill Drain, this is a card that reads, you summon this, it dies, end of discussion, cool. That's it. There's not a single positive with this card outside of having exactly Skill Drain and it getting in one attack and dying.
Rock Bombardment, Light Monster, Exhausting Spell. Counterplay.
Yeah. We found the use for Exhausting Spell. It's to kill your opponent's armor, Exay.
Yeah, I have a personal story with this card, which is that when I was a kid, I only had 2 OCG cards in total. First was Blue Eyes Ultimate Dragon. And as a kid, I didn't know that there was no TCG print around the time of GOAT format. And so my friend and I got a hold of one. I have no idea how, because we were so super young and we just had it.
Yeah,
we shared custody of it. I had it on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. We literally every other day.
Days.
Yeah, it lasted for a long time too. We're no longer friends, me and that guy, and part of it was that we kind of had a breakdown at one point because realized that that system wasn't really working, and so we wanted to come up with like a fair trade because we both
Uh-huh.
spent like half the value of the card to buy it or whatever, and so we wanted to like buy the other person out, but we couldn't agree on how many cards it would take because that card was just that good. All right, so we had that, and I had this card, and it was in Japanese, and I do not read Japanese, and so I had no idea what the effect was, and I was like, this card is the best card in the
Yup.
game.
Yup.
You can just summon it and you just win. And so that's how I played, and all my friends, none of us knew it, and so we just used it, and I was the best in the playground. So
I do remember looking at this card as a kid. All English copies, so I knew the effect. And
oh no.
just by virtue of it being a rare and a 4-star 2400 attacker, I was convinced there has to be some way
Yeah.
that this card is good. But no, no, it's just bad. Like,
I think we all have done the double take. You're like building a deck, you go on Dueling Book, you click level 4 lights.
yep,
Because I want some level 4 lights to fuel my chaos engine. But and you look at it and you're like, wow, this has to be good. But it really is so bad. I wonder, do you think that Konami was keeping in mind that the maintenance cost rule when they were making the card? Or
no,
did they think that
no.
yeah, it was an accident, right?
I think they were trying to push a level 4 monster to see how much attack that they could put on it.
Yeah.
And then they're like, you know what? This is just like there are a lot of like level 7s with these stats. So, and they were
Mhm.
just like, we got to put something on it, and this is in Magician's Force, so let's make you remove one spell counter. Which, you know, if spell counter was a good mechanic, this
Yeah.
card could actually be, well, no, even if it was a good mechanic, just putting Vengeful Bog Spirit for itself on the card automatically disqualifies it.
Yeah.
But man, you have to remove a spell counter on each standby phase, and there's no way to put spell counters on this card. So
Yeah.
it's reliant on skill drain to get the first attack off, and then it's reliant on other cards to keep it alive with a terrible mechanic. It's just
It's really rough.
yeah. Yeah.
It's really rough. If it didn't have summoning sickness, I think there would be maybe some place for this card because then you can summon it. It's huge. You can attack once with it, and then you can maybe even proc Last Will with it, which could be okay. But I think even then it still might not be good enough.
The old boar soldier effect. Yeah.
Yeah. No, but yeah, pretty much. And so I really do think that this is one of the 10 worst cards, which is so sad because I think
Yeah.
everyone kind of agrees that we all as a community want this card to be better than it is.
Yeah, I can agree with that for sure.
Now I'm just kind of sad. We're starting the episode off in a sad place. Is the next
Yeah.
card something I can poop on without feeling bad?
Oh yeah. Oh yes. Absolutely. This next one was a card that we actually missed. We didn't have it on the list until it was brought up by our good friend Gulaws. I think it's actually kind of fitting that Gulaws brought this card up because it has Goblin Attack Force in the art. And this card is none other than the absolutely god-awful Assault on GHQ. This is a normal trap, and it reads, target one monster you control, destroy it, then send 2 cards from the top of your opponent's deck to the graveyard. Thank God I get to get my opponent closer to their Sinister Serpent or their Chaos Monster, and I sure did have to lose a monster for it.
Yeah, I'm surprised. You know what? I'm surprised it's not worse. I'm surprised it's not target one face-up monster you control. I don't know why wouldn't they just go full bad? They could have made this worse. Why hesitate at the precipice? Jump into the abyss, embrace it. Nobody's playing this card. Make it even worse.
The reason that I skipped over this card in the first place is because I had read somewhere whenever I first got back into the game, back during like whenever Tour Guide from the Underworld was first released, somewhere in Tengu Plant. I remember reading that there was a combo with this card. And before we did this video, we literally Googled what the combo was with this card. and it was some AI response that basically just told you what the card does.
Yeah.
Um, there's no combo with this card. You know what? You could mind control your opponent's monster, and then you can assault on GHQ it. But like,
That's true.
eh,
That's true.
you
And
lose.
you only go neg one.
Then you only go neg one, and you fill your opponent's graveyard. So like, not only is this card gonna be at best a -1, um, it's also it just has Don Zalug's worst effect taped onto it.
Mhm.
Like it's almost always considered incorrect to mill with Dawn. I know there are cases when it is correct. I've played a lot of Donald in my time, but this effect is never seen as a positive. Almost. You
No.
do not want to mill cards from your opponent's deck, and you very much don't want to -1 or 2 to make that happen.
All right, Kuhb. All right, Kuhb. You think you're better than this card? All right. How many cards would it have to mill minimally before you would play this card? It's like it mills 40, you would play it. So what's the minimum that you would be willing to accept? Two's not enough.
To play it, man,
Yeah. If it were 10, would you play it?
10 was
And
the
you'd have to
number.
make a mill deck.
10 was the first number that I had in my head. I jumped up to 20, and I was like, if this milled 20, I'd be
Oh,
playing
no.
it. Everybody would be
Yeah,
playing
20's too good. Yeah, 20's too good.
it. Yeah, 20's too good. Like, you're going to kill Chaos Turbo on turn 1 because they're going to draw 20 cards. 10, maybe? Like, I feel like
Yeah.
if it milled, like, legit just 10, you could probably build a legit mill strategy with this and, like, Morphing Jar number 2, Needleworm, Book of Taiyu, Cyber Jar, Morphing Jar itself, maybe. You could probably do that.
Yeah.
And if you hit multiples of the card and you just mill 20, like I said against Turbo, that could be game ending. So maybe 10,
Yeah.
but 2 being a fifth of that, nah. No, I'm not giving my opponent
that's the thing, right? Yeah, I think that the effect itself, it's bad because of the number.
Yeah.
2 specifically is like almost an ideal number to help the opponent because
Yep.
you can get specifically like Arc Light and then you lose.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Specifically.
It's-
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's kind of like, well, when are you wanting to use the card? I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I'm thinking. So I'm thinking in terms of like theme and lore, right? I'm thinking like disturbance strategy also has tents, and disturbance strategy is like you unite your hand with the deck, or whatever, right? And so maybe this is like the payoff for something that you set up, like you stacked 2, and now you're gonna mill them for the low cost
Yeah.
of a -2 card. But
Yeah. Your opponent
No.
activated Pharaoh's treasure, and they're about to draw the card that's face up. Got him. Got him. Not anymore.
All right, so everyone in the comments are talking about how once we finish this list, they're going to make a deck with these cards.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny. There's some
That
inherent
is-
counterplay for the mirror.
For the mirror.
Yeah,
we did it.
but I don't know. I would rather play more Armor Exay than this card. I think by a lot. I don't even think it's close. Like I think number 9
Yeah.
is really far away from number 10.
Yeah, for sure. Like there are some upsides to, Armor Exay, Gate Guardian, Mirage Knight, Sorcerer of Dark Magic. I don't think there's a single upside really to this card as it's written.
No, it's just strictly bad,
Yeah.
which is kind of, like having some cards in GOAT format that are just like obviously bad. No really way to defend it is kind of
Yeah.
fun because
Yeah.
you break this out in your locals, no one will see it coming.
Yeah.
The surprise factor is immense with this card.
Yeah, and even people made the case for true pronged attack, where like you could take your opponent's monster and use it, and sure, that can actually come out with a decent exchange. Whereas like this card, if you take your opponent's monster, just summon a monarch or
Yeah.
or something. Like do
yeah.
something like killing 2 opponents' monsters. That's a good effect. Milling 2 cards, that's not worth it in the slightest.
No, I think there are even like a corpus of other like bad effects that are just like a lot better than Assault on General HQ, right? And so I think it's like really far down on the tier list.
Yeah.
Smile.
Yeah, this card's really bad. Speaking of, we've got another row of monsters coming up. These are
Mm,
also very bad. Starting off with another iconic one. Everybody loves this one from the anime. We have
yeah.
Wall Shadow. So this is a level 7, 1600 attack, 3000 defense warrior type for some reason. Sure
For
does
some reason.
scream warrior to me. This monster cannot be normal summoned or set and must first,
Oh,
positive there, must first be special summoned with magical labyrinth. Oh, let's bring up magical labyrinth just so we can talk about it here. And of course, magical labyrinth is sort of lumped in with this card as well because magical labyrinth obviously
yeah.
is just as bad as wall shadow. Magical labyrinth is an equip spell card that says equip only to labyrinth wall. You contribute the equipped monster. Special summon wall shadow from your deck. Only deck, by the way.
Oh, the
So,
deck.
which is it's great that you can special summon it from the deck and that it doesn't have to be from the hand, but if it's only from the deck, then if you're only playing one copy of this and you draw it, good luck. You're never going to get to
Oh,
use it. Magical Labyrinth is just it's a -2. You're getting rid of
yeah.
Labyrinth Wall, which is a totally fine card.
Mhm.
Like it's not amazing, but it is, it's got a big butt, just a big 3000 defense defender out there. That's totally fine. Why do
Yeah.
you need to -2 and get rid of that for something that attacks for a middling 1600 when you're just going to leave this in defense position anyway? Just leave the Labyrinth Wall out there.
Yeah. This card is Konami intern was assigned to give Wall Shadow an effect, and he forgore about it the whole weekend. And his boss came in, and he was like, "We need it ASAP." And he was like, "Well, all I have is the first two lines, but I guess we're just going with
Yeah,
that."
but instead of giving it something good, it's like, let's make up another card that we can use with it
Yeah.
and invent Magical Labyrinth to just make it unplayable.
Like, yeah, this is like I think very obvious. Intern forgot to tell what type it was going to be, so they defaulted to warrior. And
Yeah,
but like, there's like this card should have so many like really cool effects. Like
yeah,
it should be able to attack from defense position. It should be able to like banish itself and then come back. It should be able to have shadow ghouls attack effects.
yeah,
It should have all of that.
yeah. Also, Shadow Ghoul's a zombie and Labyrinth Wall is a rock. So, what are we doing here? What are we doing?
And together they become a warrior.
That is true. So I think this is worse than Assault on GHQ.
Yeah.
Like again, we're arguing trash versus trash, but like feel the need to do some sort of reasoning here. Assault on GHQ, like I said, you can steal your opponent's monster. It only becomes a -1. And it's actually kind of it's not a unique effect to mill, but it's not really outclassed, I guess, in a
Yeah.
sense, if you want to look at it that way. Whereas Wall Shadow it's not a strict downgrade to Labyrinth Wall because maybe there becomes a time where you do want to start attacking with it. But getting rid of what is kind of a better card in a -2 situation every time to
Yeah.
summon this, it's not a strict downgrade, but given how much you have to give up for it, it kind of is.
It certainly is. I cannot think of a single circumstance where you'd rather just have this than any other like two cards in your dueling deck. So
Yeah.
it's a shame because this has a lot of potential. And 3000 defense is great and everything, but they just kind of punted. I think this is one of the curiosities of GOAT format where you kind
Yeah.
of look at it and you really do like actually wonder what happened here because they did have the anime, and they could have taken more inspiration from that. Maybe they were just
Yeah.
scared of making it too good because this is a pretty old card.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, this is
maybe
one of
just
those,
early Yu-Gi-Oh.
probably one of the first cases. I can't remember. I think this one came before. Can't remember. It's definitely one of the first cases of take your monster and summon something out with better stats from the deck in a way.
Mhm.
So maybe they thought, oh, that's a very powerful thing to do.
Yeah,
Especially if they were basing it on like Magic the Gathering, which a lot of older Yu-Gi-Oh did. That is a
okay.
very powerful effect in Magic. So maybe they did think they needed to water it down a little bit. But also, I think it probably could just be negligence, just looking at Warrior
Yeah.
on the card. Maybe they're just like, oh, just slap it together. It's in the anime. People want to see this. Who cares what its effect is?
Right. I'm thinking you might. I think you're onto something though, because like with Magical Labyrinth only being from deck and or not deck from hand, I feel like that's feels like kind of intentional. Like they wanted to nerf it a little bit
Mm-hmm.
because they thought the deck would be like really, really, really good.
Yeah.
And I can see that because it was, yeah, as you say, it was like a little bit uncharted territory
Yeah.
at this point.
Even then, no forgiveness. They missed the mark.
No. Yeah, they get a D minus.
Yeah.
And that's only to leave room for these remaining cards to give
Yeah.
an even lower score.
Yeah. Oh, these next couple are along the lines of Wall Shadow, actually. We are starting with Red Eyes Black Metal Dragon, and this card is sick. Man,
Oh no, Kuhb. Oh no, that's the wrong art.
that's not the wrong art. We have two
RIP
arts of Red Eyes
people.
Black Metal Dragon. This is the
other
OG.
art's so much better.
This
It
is the OG.
You're
though.
right.
We got to go with the
It
OG.
looks really good in person. Totally. But the
It
other
does.
one? The other one though?
Eh,
That looks sick.
It looks
it's much
more
more
like-
metally.
it looks more like a newer card art. We're getting this out of here. So we have Red Eyes Black Metal Dragon. This is another one of those trade off your boss monster for a new boss monster thing. This is an 8-star, right? Yeah, 8-star, 2800 attack, 2400 defense, machine type monster. It says cannot be normal summoned or set. Must first be special summoned from your deck only by tributing Red Eyes Black Dragon equipped with Metal Morph. Let's dig into this. So you can actually just summon it from your deck, which is one of those weird sort of effect things where I think like this is the monsters that effect actually activates in your deck somehow. It's sort of like Dark Sage, but you summon it from your deck. If you draw it, sorry, it's just gonna sit there. But you are giving up a Red Eyes Black Dragon equipped with Metal Morph. That's a 2700 attack monster already. That just gets bigger when it attacks. Metal Morph is actually not a bad card at all. And you are minus 2ing yourself for an upgrade of 100 attack points.
Sure are.
And a machine type, I guess. If you're playing limiter removal. But like the downgrade here, like even just apart from the -2, the downgrade of giving up a better monster when equipped with Metal Morph for this is just heinous.
This one I can forgive them because obviously they made red med later on, and so they knew what they did and they
Yeah.
fixed it. But yeah, this card would have needed to have been red med to make it worth it
Yeah,
with what it's requiring
Yeah.
in code format.
yeah, just like zero effect, strict downgrade, always a -2. If you draw it, it's just completely dead. You can't do anything with it unless you're discarding it to something else or whatever. Just bad.
I feel like it should be able to get over a vanilla Blue Eyes.
Yes.
I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah. You know what would?
3100 attack.
Yeah, you know what would be able to get over Vanilla Blue Eyes?
But
Red Eyes Black Dragon equipped with Metal Morph.
I don't have one of those. I contributed them from my Red Eyes Black Metal Dragon.
You sure did. You sure did, Timmy. Good job. Good. We'll give you a little pat on the back for that. Speaking of downgrades, though, and we actually did separate these out, and we did intentionally order them this way, because Red Eyes Black Metal Dragon is a little bit easier to summon in the fact that you can cheat out your Red Eyes Black Dragon. You're not cheating out your Zoa though, and so next up we have Metal Zoa. And this is a level 8 as well. Yeah, level 8, 3000 attack. So we're a little bit bigger. 2300 defense. Cannot be normal summoned or set. Must first be special summoned by tributing Zoa, equipped with Metal Morph. This is the exact same thing as Red Eyes Black Metal Dragon. You are trading your 2 tribute vanilla monster equipped with Megamorph for a 100 attack buff. The only problem is you're probably going to have to put in more resources to summon that Zoa because you can't cheat it out with Red Eyes Black Chick or something like that. Just keep your monster equipped with a Metal Morph. Let's learn that lesson and never put Metal Zoa or Red Eyes Black Metal Dragon in your deck. Just god awful cards.
Yeah, I feel bad because it's just like it kind of comes down to these past three cards. There's no use case. I can even be like, oh
Mhm.
well, look at them. They're all dark monsters and they all have tons of stars. That's not bad, but like even in the like unusable card arena where they have the right attribute and right stars, there are
Mhm.
still better cards you could be playing instead of these,
Yeah.
like Sorcerer of Black Magic, Dark Magic.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of just like you can't even defend them in the cheese way. We've gotten to the point where it's just I'm looking at them and I want to be their advocate, but I can't. They have nothing going for them
Yeah.
at all.
I
They're
think
just strictly bad.
if you really, really want to dig deep, they are machines.
Okay,
You can use them with
I
limiter removal.
guess.
But like, I don't know,
I
play
guess, but
X head cannon.
you would rather DNA surgery, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would put DNA surgery in my deck along with Zoa before I would put Metal Zoa in my deck.
Right. And so it's just not gonna work.
Yeah, it's just not ever going to work. These are just strict downgrades to the monster and the trap that's equipped to it that's on the field. It's -2. It's god awful. If you draw them, they're dead. Just I mean, like worst of the worst boss monsters, as cool as both of them are.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's not me, it's you.
Speaking of boss monsters, Weevil Underwood would be proud or sad or whatever. This is what he gets for throwing the Exodia pieces overboard. We've got Great Moth coming up next. This is number 5 on the list.
Them off. Cut them off.
This is also a stand-in for Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth, but Great Moth we think is a little worse. So we're going to showcase that. Basically, we had to make room for Assault on GHQ, so that's what we're doing. We're lumping these together. So Great Moth reads, well, it's a level, what is it, 8? Yeah, level 8, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I can't see today for whatever reason. Great Moth is a level 8 insect. Not a good start. 2600 attack, 2500 defense. This monster cannot be normal summoned or set. This card can only be special summoned by tributing Petit Moth on the 4th of your turns after Petit Moth has been equipped with Cocoon of Evolution. To speak on Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth, it's the same thing, but the 6th turn. Basically, these are the same thing. They're both awful. You're never going to summon them. It took me 28 matches, full matches, to summon Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth, and I thought it was going to take hundreds. You're giving up, essentially, a 2000 defender for this.
For one moth.
Yeah, for a 2600 attack thing that has 0 protection, and you have to summon it from your hand.
It's crazy to me.
Yeah, it's just you have to draw it. You have to summon it from the hand. It's a -2, and you're giving up a perfectly fine defender like Gravekeeper Spy. You know, Cocoon of Evolution equipped to Petit Moth is basically Gravekeeper Spy. We all know it. Everybody plays it. It's a meta staple. Why would you give that up for Great Moth or even Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth? And the reason why we're putting Great Moth specifically on the list here is why on earth would you use this when you could just wait 2 more turns to summon out the big thing that actually has a very large attack? It just makes no sense. You're -2ing, you're almost downgrading. I guess stats wise you are upgrading, but just for the fact that you had to give a -2 to summon out this thing, which by the way is less powerful than Red Eyes Black Dragon or Metal Zoa, but still harder to summon. Yeah, you have to draw Petit Moth, which is the card you don't want in your deck already, and then you have to draw Cocoon of Evolution with it, which is a card you don't want in your deck already. And then, like, you're equipping Cocoon of Evolution to the Petit Moth when you could just summon the Cocoon of Evolution. And you're hoping that your opponent doesn't have monster removal or spell and trap removal so that you can then summon out your Great Moth. Though, honestly, it would probably be better for you if your opponent did just remove the Petit Moth so you couldn't embarrass yourself by putting this on the field.
Dang. Hey, Great Moth. I'm just gonna say it. You're in the camp of Perfectly Ultimate. You hate this boy.
I do like Perfectly Ultimate, and I am in the process of trying to buy all of these in first edition so that I can frame them and put them on the wall.
That would be great.
Yeah, I am actually a fan of the Moth cards. I think they're really cool, and I think it is a cool design. Like, this is one of those things that they were probably just like, how many turns do you need to wait before you get a free, 2600 beat stick on the board? Well, 4 is way too many, it turns out. So just kind of just missed the mark like they did with Wall Shadow.
I think that this card just belongs to a like entirely different conception of what Yu-Gi-Oh was going to be like as a game.
Yeah.
Because it could have worked if they kept the power level really, really low and made it so that like it really was reasonable that people were just playing like a ton of turns. Then this makes sense. Like if 3,500 attack points is like the highest in the entire format, and you're going to get to Perfectly Ultimate at the end of that, or Great Moth gets over Dark Magician, which is like a staple, like really big boss monster, and that's just all that exists. Then it makes perfect sense in that sort of game. But even early first sets had already kind of been inching away from that. You would have to go back to like the very beginning before that's even like a consideration. And so I honestly, I think a lot of us are drawn to GOAT format because we do like a bit of a slower game compared to like what we see even in like Edison or later than Edison. But I just don't even know. It would be a really kind of different universe where this card becomes something other than the 5th worst card in GOAT format.
Yeah. And just like the fact that it only counts your turns. So it's like 4 full turn cycles. And also just like, even if you do go back to the first set, you're just looking at Legend of Blue Eyes. Right. Just summon out your Giant Soldier of Stone, your Mystical Elf, whatever. They're not going to be able to attack over them. God knows that. So if your opponent doesn't have a Fissure or something, you're going to have 2 monsters on the field. Just tribute those for a Blue Eyes or a Trihorn Dragon. Yeah. Like something with more attack than this 2600 insect. Like I can understand the design space for like Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth. Like you said, huge attacker. Totally. 3,500 that's a lot of stats. But yeah, just the whole setup having to like no protection on anything. You don't have protection on Petit Moth, Cocoon of Evolution, or the Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth when you finally get it out. And the fact that it's just a straight up -2 for a vanilla beater, it's just at the bottom tier for sure.
Yeah. It's like Red Eyes in that it got a whole bunch of support later on that made everything a little bit better. And so they knew.
Yeah.
Let's be real. They a lot of these cards, I bet you they don't even remember exist, but they know. They know they made a mistake with a lot of these last ones.
Yeah. That is for sure. What they probably know they made a mistake with number 4 here. I don't understand why they thought this card needed as big of a drawback as they gave it, but we're done with monsters for a little bit. We're back on the spell cards. This is one that I have seen mentioned before. This is a good old -3. This is Darkness Approaches at number 4. This is a spell card that reads, discard 2 cards from your hand, select 1 face-up monster, and change it to face down. Well, it says defense position on here. That is not how it reads in GOAT format. In GOAT format, you can flip it down into face down attack positions. The only card that's ever been created that can do that. Or at least to my knowledge anyway. I know in GOAT format, it's the only one that can do that.
Really? Is that true?
Yes.
No way. All right. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole. But how does that work? Are they just like, they can't attack, right? Or would it flip?
No, it cannot attack, but you can attack it. And it's just like the monster gets flipped up into face-up attack position.
Okay. Can the person put the face-down attack position monster to defense mode?
I don't believe so.
Can you flip summon it from? Oh, so it's kind of just like a dead card then.
Yeah, you can flip summon it. God. I may be a little off on that ruling. I'm not going to take the time to look it up because this card is worthless either way. Like flipping a monster face down, even back then, just like, I don't know, it doesn't need 2 whole discards. You don't need to -3 to reflip up your Magician of Faith. We have Book of Moon. We have Tsukuyomi. We have so many cards that can do this. Now, granted, this card came out before, but it's just like, it's a positive effect, sorta. Like, you can't even use it as a way to like attack over your opponent's attack position monster because, like I said, it flips it into face down attack position.
Oh man,
So you don't even get
so
that use
bad.
case. Yeah. The only way that this card is useful is to just like set one of your flip effect monsters and reflip it, and it is just the worst at doing
Oh
that.
man, wow, yeah. I mean, this is fun for me because when Cub and I were just talking about this concept to begin with, I was pretty, I was pretty like hard pressed. I'm like, I think Darkness Approaches is the worst card.
Yeah.
That was like my quintessential. Like, I don't think anyone knows this card, and I think it's the worst because I'm a known Book of Moon hater,
Yeah.
but Book of Moon is pretty good compared to Darkness Approaches. I would rather play every copy of Book of Moon in my deck than
Yeah.
this card.
Book of Moon is the best card in Yu-Gi-Oh compared to this card.
Yeah, for sure.
This
This
card
card's
is
not even quick play. Come
yeah,
on.
yeah, this card's just a disgrace and like I don't know, like you could make an argument that it's one of you can make an argument that this is the worst, I suppose. But
Maybe.
the effect is potentially positive. So
So
maybe not. Especially unlike this next one where I can't. I guess you could think of a way where this is positive, but we're up to another spell card which a few people have mentioned. This is the Cheerful Coffin. This card simply reads: discard up to 3 monster cards from your hand to the graveyard. So it says up to, but you have to pick at least one.
oh,
You
can't be
can't,
zero.
it can't be 0. It has to be at least 1. So this card, at its best, is a -2 for no effect. At its worst, is a -4 for no effect. And I can't like we don't have the Dark Worlds yet. Not that this card was even played in Dark Worlds. That's how bad it is.
Yeah.
I like you could get a light and dark in your grave to summon out BLS, I guess. But why -3 yourself to play this card to summon out a chaos monster when you can just start flipping up Raigeki Breaks, Phoenix Wing, Wind Blast, Divine Wrath, Tribute to the Doomed, literally anything that gets cards to your graveyard, just have them die in battle. I don't know. Discard Thunder Dragon. It's
But what
just
I'm thinking is that you would much rather play Darkness Approaches because then at least you get the effect with your discards.
yes. Yes. I would much rather play Darkness Approaches. I think Darkness Approaches is a vastly better card
That's
than the
crazy.
Cheerful Coffin. The Cheerful Coffin is just bad, but it's
Wonder what was the intended use case? Because this is I feel like it's like a starter deck Yugi card, right?
I,
And so
maybe it's
are
a
you trying to
way.
like Monster Reborn?
That's
maybe?
exactly what I was gonna say. Monster Reborn, Premature Burial, something around there.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Exactly.
Get
Monster
stuff to
Reborn,
the
Dear
yeah.
Dark Magician.
Yeah, I think that's probably what they were thinking. Like, get something to the graveyard, and like it's just discard up to 3 monster cards. So, if you have 3 copies of Monster Reborn in your hand, cool. Now you just win. It's a
See,
cool
it's like an OTK.
yeah. It's a cool design space.
Yeah, I think that this belongs pretty solidly in the game that they imagined for Great Moth. Like,
Yeah.
really, really slow. You don't mind going -4 because you're gonna draw your entire deck by the end, and you're just playing a ton of vanilla monsters you don't need, and so you're just gonna play it, and you're gonna Monster Reborn your Legend, so you can have an extra normal summon, and that's huge because in this like beta version of the game, getting an extra summon in a turn is like crazy or something
Yeah.
like this.
Yeah, I think this card also has parallels to a Magic card called One with Nothing.
Okay.
Which is it an instant? It is indeed an instant. Okay, so it's 1 mana. You can play it on your turn, play it on your opponent's turn, either one. It literally reads discard your hand, and people have been
it?
trying. Yeah, that's it. People have been trying
no.
to come up with use cases for this card. And even like there's sort of a Dark World equivalent with it called Dredge, where people are like, you can discard all of your dredgers and then you can use their effects from all of that. Now, for you Magic players who know what Dredge works, I'm not saying Dredge works exactly like the Dark World cards, because the effect does not activate when the monsters are discarded. I get that. But it sort of draws parallels to that card where it's like, you kind of look at the card and you're like, yeah, this effect is so bad, but there's gotta be a way to break it somehow, right? You wouldn't just print something that's just negative everything. So it's a
Sure you
cool
would.
it's a cool design space, and they did bring out the Dark World cards, where this card probably has its like highest ceiling, but even then, like I said, no one
No,
played it with the
yeah.
Dark World cards, so it didn't even work there. So yeah, it's even with the cool ideas behind it and all of that stuff, it just didn't work out.
Yeah. I mean, there were in GOAT format, there are a lot of cards that have discard effects, but they were
Mhm.
pretty careful to say that it has
Yeah,
to be an opponent's effect. And pretty much all of these. And so
yeah,
you can't even make a deck around the idea of just like, I'm going to go very, very neg, but I'm going to get all these cool effects in hand yet in GOAT format because they thought of the Cheerful Coffin and they were like,
yeah,
no, I don't think so.
yeah, yeah. Cheerful Coffin, changing the way the game has been designed since whatever year it was released. We've talked about Darkness Approaches, always being a -3 with a potentially useful effect. We've talked about the Cheerful Coffin being at best a -2 with no effect, and at worst a -4 with no effect. This card at number 2 is at best a -3 with a positive effect. At
We love
worst,
positive effects.
yeah, at worst, a -4 with no effect. And I have not seen this one come up. We're actually we're recording this video the same day that we recorded number 20 through 11. So if anybody has guessed this card after that video is released, I haven't seen that yet. But up until now, I haven't seen this card be guessed by anyone. And actually, I've offered some people money if they can guess what number 2 on the list was, and not a single person gave me an answer for it. Number 2 is a card I didn't know about until making this list. This is Chosen One. So this is a spell card that says select one monster card and two non-monster cards from your hand. Your opponent randomly selects one card among them. If it is a monster card, it is special summoned and send the remaining two cards to the graveyard. If not, send all the cards to the graveyard. So you have to have specifically 4 cards in your hand. It has to be this, a monster, and 2 non-monster cards. So you already have a setup cost a little bit. And then you have to select all 3 of those and then RNG it out. If your opponent picks the monster card, you get to special summon it. Oh, happy day. But you lose this card and the other 2. You don't get a choice in that matter. It's a -3. Cool. You got to summon a monster. What's the biggest thing you're putting out on the board with this? Like Blue Eyes? Because it still has to meet its summoning requirements. This card doesn't allow you to summon Gate Guardian or anything like that. I guess you could put a Demock onto the field. Oh, then you could go for round 2 with Chosen One. But like, if your opponent doesn't pick the monster card, which by the way, they are mathematically likely to not pick the monster card, you lose all 4 cards. Just gone. They're all going to the graveyard. -4. You get nothing. Enjoy your game.
I think for me, what makes this card the second worst card is that you're already on the ground. You've been punched. You've lost all 4 of your cards because there's a 66% chance that'll happen. You're crying. You're crying. You're going to quit the game. And then it whispers in your ear that all of those cards were sent to the graveyard, not discarded. And so you can't even get
Yeah.
incidental discard synergy. It is punitive in the way it absolutely does not need to be.
Yeah.
No way you're getting value. Nope. You
It's
can't do
so
force
bad.
requisition. Nope. It is. There is a world where you could argue that this is actually the worst card. It might be number 1.
There is a world. Yes. Before we get to number 1, go over some honorable mentions here. We're just going to cover 3 of them. There are a ton of cards you could put on this list probably. You could interchange a whole bunch of stuff. It's not a super science, especially whenever you're talking like 50 through 41. There could be a lot of different cards that sort of change out, interchange, same thing. um, that could be swapped out with some of those cards. Sure. Some of the ones we wanted to go over that we thought were a little bit interesting. One is Steel Scorpion. A lot of people mentioned Swordsman from a Distant Land and Zone Eater, both of which are not legal in GOAT format. This is the closest thing that we have to those. And this is a 1-star, 250 attack, 300 defense machine type monster. That reads, a non-machine type monster attacking Steel Scorpion will be destroyed at the end phase of your opponent's second turn after the attack. It's not good, but like it does have a purely positive effect. It is a level 1. It is a machine type, and the fact that it destroys at your opponent's second end phase is miles better than 5 turns later. Like Swordsman from a Distant Land and Zone Eater, they're both 5 turns. This is only 2, so we decided with it being a monster, being a level 1 Earth machine, with a purely positive effect, that we would leave this off the list.
Yeah, you look at this, you look at Bite Shoes, you'd rather have this. You would totally rather have this.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely true.
Yeah, and so it is worth some consideration though, because I do think that like you're exactly right that people have they remember the monsters that have like kind of like a comically large time to wait for like a mid effect to happen.
Yeah,
and yeah, Steel Scorpion's the closest thing we've got to that, and so it's quite bad. But it could have no effect. It could a normal summonable level 1 Earth, no matter what, is not going to be the bottom 50 for sure.
Yep, that is true. Next up on our honorable mentions list, I love that we're specifically talking about this card. You all will notice an absence of Destiny board from the list. We talked about that card maybe longer than a lot of other cards whenever we were first constructing the list. And basically, yeah, Destiny board takes a lot of setup, but it's time setup. It's not like you have to get all of the Dark Scorpions on the board, or you have to assemble all 5 pieces of Exody in the graveyard, then play another card. It's you just flip up Destiny board, and it supports itself. It sets itself up. You just have to protect the cards, which Solemn Judgment exists. You can use Messenger of Peace, which you can get rid of at any point that you want to protect your life points. But we are specifically talking about Spirit Message in.
Specifically N.
Because it doesn't do anything. So like it's one of those you can lump in with Destiny board. But it's also like in the middle of the chain. So you're probably playing 2 of this rather than 1 in your deck. Whereas A and L, a lot of times you don't get to those. So a lot of times you just take up 1 slot in your deck with those. So it's kind of this actually shows you how much we thought about Destiny board when we were talking about this, because we kind of pinpointed the worst of the Destiny board cards, and we're going to go with Spirit Message in, which I guess would be FINDEA would be Spirit Message A if you're going with the OCG cards.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the worst. Being middle makes it so that it'll take up more deck space, and I went through kind of like a sad journey, and I would recommend if anyone's thinking about Destiny board to go on goatformat.com and look up the rulings, because they are incredibly harsh on that card. Like, you cannot do anything to advance it anyway. Like it's very, very strict. And so the mechanic itself is quite bad, but Kuhb and I talked about it, and we're like, well, you win the game if you get it, and that's the best effect possible. And so it can't make the list even with Spirit Message N, but these cards are so bad because they literally do nothing. Yeah, you have them in your hand and they're just liabilities on field, and like getting rid of it in the graveyard doesn't give you anything. And so it's just a mathematical equation in terms of like N is the worst, I think. Yeah.
And to go with that, like to get Destiny board onto this list, I think you would have to have some sort of like mechanic where like Destiny board wasn't pulling these cards out of your deck on its own. Like say you just had to draw all of them and play them all once per, like you can only play 1 per turn, but you have to play them all from your hand. Then Destiny board would easily make it up into like top 20 or whatever. But just the fact that it's it sets itself up. You don't minus or anything. And you literally win the game if you do get it off. I think is good enough to keep it off the list.
Yeah. I really want to, I've talked about this with you a little bit. I really want to build a Destiny board deck where you don't actually play all of the Destiny board
I forgot
cards.
about
You just
this.
play F, I, and N. Because as Kuhb said, like once you play Destiny board, you will never go neg because if they remove it, it's at least a 1-for-1. But you can totally get like FIN, even A, FINA, and then you can play Giant Trunade. And you go plus.
You know, we could play the OCG version of it. And we could just play DEA and we could name the deck the Drug Enforcement Administration.
Administration. Yeah.
I forgot all about that idea that you had. Yes, we definitely need to do that for sure.
Yeah, we could find a way to break it. Like Chiron, discard the spirit messages. It could, it could be good. Could be good.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, it could definitely be good. And getting on to our last honorable mention, this is a card that I think moved places on the list more than any other card. We originally, I want to say, had it in our somewhere in this area, right in here, right in the middle. And then we're like, you know what? It does this. Well, we'll move it back. And then we just kept looking at other cards and we're like, no, this card does this. It does this. It does this. And we actually ended up taking it off the list. This is a strict -1, and this card is Arsenal Robber. Just on first read, it says your opponent selects one equip spell card from his or her deck and sends it to the graveyard. Well, who's playing equips? Everybody. Almost every deck is playing Snatch, Steal, or Premature Burial. So this card is literally send Snatch, Steal, or Premature Burial from your opponent's deck to the graveyard. It is a -1, but that's not the worst -1 effect in the world, really.
And I kind of remember there were like 4 different moments where we kind of turned the corner where we're like, oh yeah, I guess you could use it in this way. And that this card, like, this is never going to come up, but it could. You get the kind of dark designator effect where, like, let's say they don't have an equip card, you can technically search their deck.
Yep.
And get info and so it won't ever be the case that you get literally nothing from this card, which automatically puts it above like almost all of these cards where you mostly get nothing.
Also, the art kind of cool.
Is
that taking Twin Swords of Flashing Light Trice?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's actually pretty cool. I like that.
What's in the foreground? What's on the ground? In the light. I don't know.
I can't tell what that is. Not sure.
But anyways, yeah. Sick art.
Yeah. But those are our honorable mentions. I'm sure you all know what card is coming next, or at least some of you have already guessed it. I was a big proponent of this being the worst card in GOAT format. It's not a -3. It's not a -4. And it is a monster with attack points. It is a -2 though, and this is Larva Moth. So we specifically lumped Great Moth and Perfectly Ultimate Great Moth together because they are kind of the same card, just big beat stick, not strict downgrade, something you can do. This card, though, this is a level 2. Why did it have to be level 2? The worst level. It is an insect, which is also very bad. This card cannot be normal summoned or set. This card can only be special summoned by offering Petit Moth as a tribute on the second of your turns after Petit Moth has been equipped with Cocoon of Evolution. Okay. Wait 2 more turns and get a 2600 beater, or sacrifice your 2000 defense monster to -2 to have the worst downgrade of all time in Yu-Gi-Oh's history. It's outclassed by its own family. It's just the fact that it is a -2, it is the worst level. Its stats are just miles worse than what you have to give up, and you have to give up 2 cards, and you have to wait to give up 2 cards, and it has to be from your hand. Just why?
Yeah.
There's not a single good thing possible about this card.
Ever since you said it was outclassed by its own family, now I feel kind of bad for it. Now I'm looking at it and I'm like, man, Can't we all relate to this little larva moth? Haven't we all emerged from a cocoon after 2 turns and told that we were half baked and we should have just remained in the cocoon? Doesn't happen to all of us.
Also, why does a caterpillar go into its cocoon and come out as a caterpillar? Like,
Yeah, that. Huh.
I don't think that's how metamorphosis works. I could be wrong, but like, I don't know. There's not much to say about this card other than like, it has every strike against it. It's got the bad level. It's got the bad stats. It's got the -2. You have to wait for it. So it's got the setup, like the worst setup. It can only be summoned from hand by its effect. It's a brick if you draw it. If you don't already have Petit Moth, which is already bad. Equipped with Cocoon of Evolution, which is something that you already don't want to do. It's outclassed. It has deck building constraints. It literally has negative marks going for it on every single possible area, other than the fact that it could put your opponent's life points to 0, I guess.
But even then,
yeah.
there's. I struggle to think of that this is the way that you should or could do it, because it feels like just Petit Moth would get it done faster, probably. And so it's kind of, this card, I really enjoy it because I think it just encapsulates everything that could go wrong. Like they pretty purposefully made this card as bad as possible.
Yes.
And for that, I think it's really neat because I don't know. I think that we deserve some just like truly, you will never use this cards. Like this isn't even like, oh, Spirit of the Pharaoh, you can make your own mini game. Everything's going to be really fun. Like no one's going to do that with Larva Moth either. It's just like no one will ever use this card ever. And for that reason, Kuhb, you should make it the mascot of your channel. You should bring it into the fold.
Get rid of the Moki Moki King?
No.
Am I just going to like make my channel the evolution of Ruxin then?
Yeah. You can have some minor passive aggression.
I have upgraded to Larva Moth.
Oh man.
Yeah. But I don't know. I really like the art of this card. Like I said, I do like the Moth line, but it's just not defendable. In my eyes, just given how many negative marks it has against it, I do really think that this is the worst card that we have been given in this great format. And that is, unfortunately or fortunately, however you look at it, that is going to bring our list to a close of the 50 worst cards printed in GOAT format. Petty, you can't say see you next Wednesday.
I'm stressed. What are we doing next Wednesday, Kuhb? What am I meant to do?
Well, we'll have to think of something. Everybody DM Petty and get his address so that you can send him a coloring book or something, so that he'll have something to do next Wednesday.
I need something to stimulate my mind, please.
All right. Do you have anything to say before we sign off here?
I just hope you guys have enjoyed the series. I really enjoyed doing it with you, Kuhb. I hope that we can come up with some other cool ideas along this line, because I think this kind of like almost like podcast style talking through cards is gonna be fun for people to listen to, kind of think about their own ideas. And so I think it's just a really fun way to engage with the community a little bit more.
Yeah. Download Spotify now to catch our podcast we're going to launch next Wednesday. That's a joke. But yeah, no, this has been a lot of fun. Definitely hope that we can get something else going. And yeah, thanks as always for coming on and making these videos a whole lot more fun than me just sitting here talking about bad cards for an hour for each video.
Of course.
All right, well, that's the video. That's the list. It's been 5 great weeks. Hope you guys enjoyed. We'll be back with the next one.